Hi, this is Dovid Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Whether you're watching with our friends over at Torah Anytime, or wherever you watch or listen to your podcast, as always, we are excited to have you along. When I say we, I mean me, producer Mikhail, and the hundreds, if not thousands, but I don't know, but definitely hundreds. No, it's definitely thousands. Yeah, the thousands of people who are part of the Rabbi Orlofsky show family. Now, before we get started, because we got a lot to do today, I wanted to start with our dedication, our sponsorship, which is being sponsored by Ellie and Rena Gray in honor of our son Abi's first Hebrew birthday. Now, this is a very special dedication for me, obviously, because both Ellie and Rena were Talmidim of mine. So when the two of them come together, isn't it always nice when you go to a chasana from both sides? You know, you feel you could have been invited from either side. You know, it's so nice. And their son's first birthday. Thank you for continuing to inspire your audience each week with your unique blend of humor and passion for truth. Trust me, it's got me into trouble more than once. We are grateful to have both had you as our Rebbe and hope that Abi will be able to meet you soon and continue the legacy. Hatzlacha in mitzvos Hashem. Next time I make it down to Georgia, it'll be a pleasure to see your son and to see the two of you. And may your family continue to grow and go. May chayil and to have a lot of hatzlacha. Now, if you watched the extra episode that we were able to put up of the Rabbi Orlofsky show live in Flatbush, you got, I hope, a small taste of the excitement when a bunch of Rabbi Orlofsky show crazies come together. There is nothing like it. Now, bear in mind, we had less than a week to advertise it. It was less than a week, and it was just sent out to the email list, and the little video only went up on YouTube. It didn't get up onto Torah Anytime. And we got a nice crowd of people in deepest, darkest Flatbush where there's no parking. And it's just so much excitement and so much enthusiasm. I hope you were able to get a feeling of it from watching the video. But everybody who was there is part of something special. And you who are watching this are part of something special. And I was encouraged by so little lead time and getting such a wonderful response that bli neder, I have another trip coming up around Lag BaOmer time. I'm going to be spending the Shabbos after Lag BaOmer in St. Louis, or St. Louis, however you want to pronounce it, in Missouri, or Missouri, however you want to pronounce it. And I'm going to try either the week of Lag BaOmer or the week afterwards to do a few of these events in a couple of different communities. If you are interested in having the Rabbi Orlofsky show live come to your community, please contact us, as always, through our website, rabbiorlofsky.com, and you can contact us there if anyone would like to sponsor one of these, because I just got to tell you now, this thing's going to take off. You want to be a part of this. Don't want to miss out. Yeah. So it's going to be very exciting. I have to tell you, the feeling in the room was just so tremendous. And as you saw from the interview, our friends from Torah Anytime showed up. And we have a lot of other friends, surprises waiting in the wings to make an appearance in mitzvos Hashem on the Rabbi Orlofsky show live. So I'm going to have to somehow get my Rabbi Orlofsky show live sign to America, because for my 60th birthday, my kids made a big sign, and I have to figure out how to get it over there. But in any event, if you watched it, I hope you got a little bit of a feeling how exciting it was. So I'm back from a really incredible trip to America. I have not had a speaking trip to America in a very long time. I had the schus to do a Shabbos up in the Catskills with my good friends about, this summer will be 3 years. And I didn't really have a trip since. And all of a sudden, this trip came together. So I had the schus of speaking for the Shanix tzedakah organization in Lakewood, Ava Tzedakah. I have to tell you that Mrs. Shanik spoke beforehand, and I was really impressed with the fact that there are people in this world who make you appreciate how little you've accomplished. And I know for me, Mrs. Shanik did that. It was so beautiful and so inspiring. And the whole evening, they brought me in just to thank the block captains who were in charge of raising money and looking out for people on their own block in Lakewood. What a beautiful, beautiful event. And I was so deeply moved, and I got such wonderful reaction afterwards. It was wonderful. The next Shabbos, I spoke at the Project Inspire convention. You can go to our good friends at Torah Anytime. They have the shiurim that were not on Shabbos recorded. If you want to go over to YouTube, they have recorded the ones that were on Shabbos. I'm just kidding. Anyway, with our friends over the Christian organization. I'm just kidding about that. But so those shiurim were up, and it was just unbelievable event. I am so moved. I haven't been to a Project Inspire convention in years, and I am so moved by what they do, not just by how they inspire people to go out and reach out to other Jews. And a number of those Jews who became Frum because people from Project Inspire came back inspired to go out and reach out to their fellow Jews. But in addition to that, the people themselves walk away with such an inspiration. And I know the one good thing for me about the weekend is that I did not put on any extra weight because there were a lot of buffets. And every time I would walk to one of the buffets, people would come over and talk to me. You know? And I would talk person. And eventually, like an hour and a half later, I get back to my wife. She says, "Where's the food?" I said, I never made it to the food. I had something better, speaking to the wonderful, wonderful people who come to this. The whole thing was sold out. It was just really such an exceptional thing. They do such a great job, and I just enjoyed it so much. And then that Sunday night was the Rabbi Orlofsky show live, and then I flew out to L.A. I went back to L.A. I stayed with my good friends, the Haredim, who live in Los Angeles, and I got to do a Shabbos for my good friend Rabbi Yitzi Summers, and it was just such a beautiful Shabbos. Yeah, my wife said they're working you hard, and I said, listen, and I've said this on the podcast many times, and I have to repeat myself, but you realize that there's over 90 hours. I'd have to make a cheshbon. It's probably close to 100 hours of podcasts that have been done. That means that I'm speaking for 100 hours. It's impossible not to repeat yourself. Yeah, it's possible that I know I've made this point more than once. So I'm going to make this point, and I recognize I might be repeating myself, but you have to understand there's been almost 100 hours of podcasts that have taken place, and it's impossible that I'm not going to repeat myself. So it's possible that you've heard this before, because you have to understand there's been almost 100. I know some people are a little slow on the uptake. I told this joke at the Project Inspire convention, and I only realized afterwards that nobody got it. So if you happen to have been there and you happen to be watching the podcast, allow me to help out those who didn't get the joke. Yeah, I said there was somebody at the convention with a seeing eye dog, and I said, and it always made me wonder when you walk into a mall and you see that little sign, "No dogs except seeing eye dogs." Who is that sign for? Anyway, there was a smattering of laughter, and I said, come on, you could get this. And then everyone started laughing. And it turned out that they didn't get the joke, but they just felt bad because they knew it was a chisaron in them. They know that I'm funny. I have a chazaka. So they figured, no, I shouldn't. I should laugh because I know it was funny. I just didn't get it. The point is, if you put up a sign that says no dogs except seeing eye dogs, the people who are vision impaired can't read it. So, what? The people who can see Read it. What good does that do? They don't have a seeing eye dog. Just write no dogs. And the guy with the seeing eye dog is going to bring it in. And Ella, watch, you afraid someone's going to give him mussar and yell at him because he came in with a seeing eye dog and said, what's wrong with you? What are you, blind? Did you see the sign? Anyway, that's the joke. And nobody got it. And I don't care. My attitude is, and I've always maintained this, that when I'm speaking, especially when I give like a 45-minute hour drusha, that if the average audience gets about 60 to 70% of my jokes, I'm happy. Sometimes I tell jokes just for myself. I know no one's going to get it, but I just make myself laugh. And that's why I listen to my own recordings. And I watched the Frum podcast twice. It was so funny. I had such a good time. In fact, I got a suggestion from somebody who said that they really enjoyed the questions at the end, which were really just jokes, and the other jokes that were peppered throughout. And they said, I think at the end of the podcast, in addition to answering questions from listeners, you should stick in a joke. Okay, I hear that. But anyway, so it was a wonderful, wonderful time. In fact, my friend Dovid Charedim told me that when he was in Israel, someone said, Ma Shem Mishpacha Sholcha? What's your family name? He said, Charedim. He says, Ani yodea shehem Charedim, aval ma Hashem? He says, no, Charedim. It's much like an Abbott and Costello routine. So, these were the classic Abbott and Costello routines. He'd say, says, I have an uncle in Alaska. He says, know him? Because there's a place called Noam, Alaska. He says, know him? He says, of course I know him. He's my uncle. He says, no, Noam, Alaska. He says, I'd know him in Alaska. I'd know him anyway. Anyway, so what's your name? Charedim. No, I know your family's Charedim, but what? I actually have a daughter, Batsheva. And when she was 7 years old, I used to do this with her. I said, Ech karim lach Batsheva. Bat kama at Batsheva. Lo sha'alti et Hashem shalach. Bat kama at Batsheva. So there you go. There's that funny routine. I work for 7-year-olds. I don't have a problem. People say to me, how do you relate to people of all ages? I have avoided maturing. And so, Baruch Hashem, there are enough people out there who are like me. By the way, if you go to my closing talk at the Project Inspire Convention, I talked about this very idea. So, in any event, that was my American trip. And like I say, I'm going again Lag BaOmer. And I feel a little bit like Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, the American humorist, because a newspaper printed his obituary, and he wrote a letter to the editor saying, reports of my death have been highly exaggerated. So I didn't go to America to speak for 2 years. So I said, okay, that's the end of my speaking career. I'm obviously morphing into whatever the next stage of my life is going to be. And then all of a sudden I came back. So who knows? Who knows what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has in store? My approach to life has always been let HaKadosh Baruch Hu steer and let him run where you're supposed to go. And you'll never be lost. You never have to worry. Okay, that's just catching up. Listen, full disclosure. When I was in America, the podcasts that you were watching were pre-recorded. Yeah? This episode has been pre-recorded to be broadcast at a later date. Right? So, okay. So now I'm here. There's some way to do this live. I don't know how, but we keep moving forward. Before you know it, it's going to be the 3rd year anniversary. It's unbelievable. We're going to be starting our 4th year of this, which was just a funny idea that I had once. If you go back and watch the first episode, it looks like a hostage video. It was filmed in the corner of my bedroom. So anyway, I remember when I was a kid, my parents had this dish towel that was written on it, "Help, I'm being held prisoner in a Chinese laundry." So it was just an idea, but it turned out that there's a need. And when people say to me how much they enjoy it, I mean, we all agree. There's nothing like this. There are plenty of shiurim. I could do that. If I wanted to, be a real rabbi. This week's parsha has a very interesting concept that I believe we need to develop further. Let's begin. I could do that. I can. I've been a real rabbi. Yeah. Well, not a real rabbi, but I have filled some rabbinical jobs once. In fact, in one of my speeches, I do an imitation of a rabbi. And I was doing a Shabbos once, and they didn't have a rabbi, so they said, could you be the rabbi? So I did my impersonation of a rabbi. It was perfect. Anyway, so, and there's late sunnis. There are people who do late sunnis out there. But to be able to have Torah that's presented in an entertaining way, I happen to think we are the only avenue for this. And so that's it. I'm thrilled that I have this chus. I'm thrilled that people watch, listen to me. And that's what I said I was going to repeat, that I've said many times, I cannot thank you enough for the fact that people listen to me, because I live here in Eretz Yisrael, where there is no shortage of retired rabbis who would love to have the opportunity to be able to speak to an audience of 6. You see, sometimes they give a little share between Mincha and Ma'ariv. They have 3 old men, one's sleeping, one's deaf, one's dead, and their whole chiyas, they spend the whole day preparing for that. And the fact that I have the schus, that thousands of people want to listen to me, and that's why I was saying at the Project Inspired Convention, that so many people wanted to talk to me. I had a trip to America when my mother was still alive, and it was a very busy trip. And my mother commented, she says, it's too much for you. I said, Mom, there's going to come a time when nobody's going to want to hear me. And so as long as people want to hear me, I'm going to keep talking. And when that day comes, that I'm asked to give the shir in between Mincha and Ma'ariv for the 3 old men, I'll just sit at home, answer emails on my computer, assuming anybody's still writing me. So that's what I'll do. I'll finally answer all those emails you sent me that I haven't answered yet. But I've prepared my family. I said that when I finally go, when my time is up, and Kosh Baruch Hu takes me to the next world, don't worry about it. Just buy a cardboard cutout of me and stick it in front of the computer. You won't even know I'm gone for years. Every now and then I'll have a recording you can play and say, what is everybody doing over here? Why are you making so much noise? And no one will even know I'm gone. All right. So all of that's just catching up. So I miss you guys. I miss you so much. When I go to America and people come over to me from all walks of life, I have to tell you, I meet chashuvim from famous families and people with big positions who come over to tell me they watch the show. I have children of all ages, elementary school, high school. I have kids who are off the derech. I have elderly people. I have people from all walks of life who somehow feel joined together. That's one of the exciting things of making this podcast, and like I say, of the live, because we get to see each other. I have not given up my hope of making a real Rabbi Orlofsky Pesach program where we can find a hotel and hopefully fill it with Rabbi Orlofsky show crazies and just have a whole Pesach together. It sounds like such an exciting thing. I'm really looking forward to seeing how we can work that out. But anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think of me? All right. Just talking about that. But again, how much I appreciate you taking out of time to listen and to be a part of this, of the Rabbi Orlofsky community, Rabbi Orlofsky show community, I should say. Yeah. In real life, I'm really very dull. People say, my wife tells me, people come home and say, is he funny at home too? So she gives one of 2 answers. It goes, yes, he's very funny. Well, she goes, no, he's terribly depressed. He just sits around all day, and it's a real ordeal to have to put up with him. So whoever I am, I don't know. I have people come over and discuss intimate moments of my life because evidently I said it over on a show and everyone's into it, you know. My kids tell me, they meet people and they go, oh, are you the one who? They're like, no, Orlofsky's a very common name. We're not related at all. All right, I'm sorry. I'm just catching up. A little hyper. Oi, what do I want to talk about? I want to talk about something that is, I think, beyond tragedy. I think it's transitional. I really do. Because I've mentioned this in the past. When I was growing up, there would be a Torah Masorah meeting. I'm not even talking about a convention. It'd be a meeting. And in the room was Rav Moshe Feinstein and Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky and Rav Ruderman and Rav Henoch Leibowitz from Chavetz Chaim and Rav Gifter and all the Gedolim of America would get together and say, how are we going to solve the problems in America? In Eretz Yisrael, you had the Stipler, and you had already coming up, people already knew, Rebbe Yoshev, Shlomo Zalman, Shach, all these people were already there. They were already on the scene. And one by one, Scheinberg, one by one, we lost them all. And but there was still Rav Chaim Kanievsky. And now that Rav Chaim Kanievsky is no longer with us, there will always be Kodesh Baruch Hu never going to leave us alone. There will always be somebody to fill the place. But the legends of the last door, are no longer with us. Those people who we used to tell stories to our children about. So I want to spend a little time talking about Rav Chaim Kanievsky. I met him only once. When I say met him, I mean I had an opportunity to ask him a shaila. Somebody took me to see him. He has a big room. It's not even a big room, but it's a room. That was his dining room, his living room. It was filled with svarim. That's where he was. Well, we were waiting to go in and talk to him. We were waiting in his bedroom. A dorm room. Probably looks nicer than this room. Paint was peeling. They had like sachnut beds. Now, make no mistake about it. People had offered to buy him a nice apartment. He refused. He says, my father, the Stifler, lived here. Yeah, I can live here too. Yeah. And he lived very simply. That's how he lived. All he did was sit and learn. So we went to ask a shaila, and afterwards I brought my son along, Moshe Yehuda, who you've met in previous podcasts, and asked him for a bracha. And the fellow who was with us said, and he's a Kohen. So Rav Chaim lit up. He goes, a Kohen? There's a mitzvah to be mechabed a Kohen cotton. And he pulls out one of his svarim and he starts showing where he wrote about it. And he was so excited to be able to show this chiddush that he wrote to a couple of people who were just sitting in his living room, dining room, base medrash, everything, There was such a warmth and such a realness to him. I want to tell you a couple other stories that again, the thing about something that is very big is that everybody sees only a little piece of it. Now, when Rabbi Yisrael Salanta was nifter, so Itzla Blazer, who was also known as Itzla Peterburger, was his Talmud Mufak. He was called Peterburger because he was the Rav of St. Petersburg, which was the capital of all the Russias. And he gave it up to become a Talmud to Rabbi Yisrael Salanta. And after Rabbi Yisrael was nifter, he said, I knew him better than anybody, and I didn't know him at all. Gedolim are only megala, a tiny little bit of who they are. The rest of it they keep hidden. And I always thought it's so different when you have a celebrity, either from movies or from music or from politics, and they have this whole machine creating an image. And after they die, so the people put out books and you find out the person was nothing like they pretended to be. And Gedolei Torah, you only begin to get glimpses of who they were afterwards because they hide everything and their greatness. So I'll tell you a story. My wife has a cousin. She and her friend were learning in Midrashet Maria. Right? If you're not familiar, it's a modern Orthodox seminary. So her friend said, come, we're going to go and get a bracha from, I don't know which Rebbitzin, some Rebbitzin in Bnei Brak. I don't know who it was. So they come to the Bnei Brak and they say, where does the Rebbitzin live? Thinking, of course, there's only one in Bnei Brak. So the people in Bnei Brak here, the Rebbitzin, you must mean Rebbitzin Kanievsky. Okay, so Thursday they show up and they come to her. And she's in her tiny little kitchen, yeah. And they said, we came to get a bracha. She says, listen, Thursday I make Shabbos. I don't give out brachas, but if you want, you can make challahs with me. So they're like, okay. So these two American girls in a month-long seminary spend Thursday making Shabbos with Rabbi Kanievsky. And at the end, she says to them, why don't you come back next Thursday? And Thursday after Thursday, they would come and they would sit with Rabbi Kanievsky and make Shabbos. So towards the end of the year, she says, what are you going to do next year? She says, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to go back and go to college, or maybe I'll go and go to Michallah, and you could take some academic courses. So Rabbi Kanievsky says, no, for sure go to Michallah. She says, well, I don't know if I can get in. She says, I'll write you a letter of recommendation. Now, I imagine this is the only letter of recommendation Michallah ever got from Rabbi Kanievsky. And these people were so real. As we were walking in to go and ask Chaim, she was coming down the steps, and someone comes over and hands her a piece of paper with a name to daven for. So she goes, oh, I'm a Rebbe, I'm getting kvitlach. There was something so real about it. Now, this is the part of the story that I heard. And again, as I always say, I don't check out any of my stories. I'm not Pesach Kron. Okay? But I've heard this story from a number of people. I hope it's true. When he was young, he couldn't learn. He didn't have a head. They say the stipler was going to get him a profession so that he could at least go out and earn a living, because he was never going to make it in learning. They wanted to make a kolel elyon for only the best people. And the Chazon Ish said, you're making a mistake, because I knew a boy who, when I used to learn with him, could not understand Chumash and Rashi. And today he's a Talmid Chacham. He was talking about Reb Chaim. I met somebody 30 years ago, and somehow Reb Chaim Kanievsky came up and he said to me, I don't get it. I was in Cheder with him. He couldn't learn a word. That's what the guy said to me. He just brought it up in the context of the conversation. Okay, so we know the story of the Vilna Gaon, who either he was 6 or he was 9. There's two versions of the story. He finished Zvachim and Menachos in one night, We know the story of Rabbi Yoel, the Satmar Rebbe, when he was a little boy. His father, when he was sleeping, tickled his ear with his tzitzis, and he pulled down the little sleeve of his stretchy to rub his ear. Okay. But here was a person who had to fight to be able to make it. It's a big deal to become a sandik, to be a sandik at a bris. Chaim was a sandik for one of my nephews. My brother-in-law, Rabbi Lichtman, was able to get him. He came down to Kiryat Sefer to be a sandik. I had Rabbi Yosef for one of mine. You think wow, they're so busy. To be a sandik, yeah. Now, to be a sandik is compared to being makriv k'tayris, to offering up the incense in the Beis Mikdash. And the Mishnah says that you only got to do that once. Each Kohen got to do it one time. Why? Because there was a special bracha that if you brought the k'tayris, you became rich. So someone asked the stipler, said, you've been, sandik so many times. Where's the money? He says, my son Reb Chaim, Remember on game shows they used to say, you won $10,000 in cash and prizes? Yeah. Sometimes you get in cash, sometimes you get in prizes. You have a kid like Reb Chaim, right? What a bracha that was. And you understand that he made himself into this person. He worked and developed himself. What an unbelievable thing. There are Gedolim children who do not make it. Rabbi Salanta had a kid who went off, Just the fact that your father was a Gadol B'Yisrael is no guarantee. It's not a Yerusha to you. And Reb Chaim was somebody who made himself. And he remained simple and humble his whole life. What a wonderful, wonderful person. A person, besides being a Gadol B'Yisrael, but what a person. And what can I say? Klal Yisrael is all the poorer for it. People who were close to Reb Chaim said that he was not well. He wasn't really active. I don't know how long, last months, last years, I don't know exactly. And I just remember hearing, I forget which Gadol it was, I'm bad with my Gadol names, that the Chafetz Chaim, when he was very old, he wasn't really that alert, that active. So one of them said to another one, he goes, remember when we had the Chafetz Chaim? And he says, what are you talking about? The fact that he's alive is mugging on our door. Doesn't matter whether he's going around speaking or writing, or the very fact that a tzaddik like this lives among us is a tremendous protection for us and for our entire generation. And that's why Hitler did not come to power until after the Chafetz Chaim died. So people asked me, what does it mean that Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky died on Shushan Purim? And I said, I don't know, but Libi Omer, it's not good. I don't know if it's. I don't think it's a good thing for us. So we'll carry on and limp our way into Yemos Mashiach. It's Hashem. And now we come to the question and answer portion of our program. And we got some very interesting questions. Yeah. Jeff Davis asks, why is it that among less affiliated Jews, there are some mitzvos that they are very makbid on? Fasting on Yom Kippur, Pesach, and Bris Milah. These are all quite difficult mitzvahs, and I wonder why these are generally well observed. If I wasn't affiliated, these aren't necessarily the ones I would choose. So, the question is profound, and the answer is meta-historical. You know how hard it is to work that word into a sentence? Anyway, what does that mean? In the 1980s, the New York Federation did a survey of religious observance among Jews in New York. And they found not 3, only 2 mitzvos that were being observed by more than 80% of Jews from all stripes. A Pesach Seder and Bris Milah. Yom Kippur perhaps more than some things, but Hanukkah did not get 80%, Yom Kippur didn't get 80%, those 2. Why is that? We're coming up to Pesach. At the Pesach Seder, we're going to say, B'damai chayi, B'damai chayi. By the blood, you will live. Yeah, 2 bloods. The blood of Bris Milah and the blood of Korban Pesach. Eliyahu Hanavi gave up on Klal Yisrael. You remember that part? After the whole Har Carmel, and he saw that he was not successful in swaying the Jewish people back to tshuva, and he just goes out into the desert and says, I want to die. So Kadosh Baruch Hu says, you're not going to die, but you gave up on the Jewish people, so you can't be the leader anymore, because the leader has to believe in Klal Yisrael. You have to always remain true to Klal Yisrael. Yeah. The Satmar Rebbe was known to be a staunch anti-Zionist. And somebody asked him, he goes, I don't understand. You see, Avram Avinu davened for the Rishoyim of Stone. Why don't you, daven for all the Tzionim, all the Zionists, that they should do tshuva? So he says, You know what I'm davening when I'm davening my Shemona Esrei? You know what I'm saying when I'm in my Chadrei Chadarim? Publicly, Avraham said, I wouldn't take a shoelace from you people, Yesed Rishayim. And privately on the mountain, he davened. He said, I'm always davening. You cannot be a leader of Klal Yisrael unless you believe in Klal Yisrael. So Hashem says, but you're not gonna die. Take the next fiery chariot up to heaven, and you're sticking around. And you're going to do three things. You're going to come to every Pesach Seder. You're going to go to every Bris Milah, because I want you to see that these people that you gave up hope on 2,500 years ago are still here and still making a Pesach Seder and still making a Bris Milah. And then at the end, you're going to announce Mashiach's arrival and eat a big piece of humble pie for these people that you already gave up hope on. These two mitzvahs are the mitzvahs that got us out of Mitzrayim, and as such, they are a bris. They're a special power that is in the hearts and soul of every Jew, that these are the most important ones. Do they stop to think about it? Maybe not. But it touches them on a level that's beyond their words to describe. Anonymous asks, is there such a thing as, quote, don't let people take advantage of you in Judaism? For example, I have a babysitter in my house who watches my child in addition to other children. One of the other mothers wanted to leave a half a gallon of milk in my fridge so she wouldn't have to bring milk every day. I told her we don't always have room, so the answer was no. And thinking about it later, it's harder for her to bring the milk daily than it is for me to squish an extra bottle into my fridge that's not mine. But I was thinking about me because it's my house. Maybe I should think about her instead. Okay, let's put aside the example. Let's focus on the question. Is there such a thing as don't let people take advantage of you in Judaism? No. No. That's the concept of chesed. Yeah. Chesed means that you look for opportunities to help. The reason there are people who are in need is because those of us who want to give want to have the experience to give. Right? Okay. I've mentioned this in the past. There was a time when I moved to Israel over 30 years ago, and I'd get a call from a girl learning in seminary. There weren't so many of them back then. And she'd say, would I be able to join you for a Shabbos meal? And we'd say, okay. Could I bring a friend? Okay. Would you like me to come and help Thursday night or Friday morning? Whatever. Whichever one was better for us, they would come, they would help peel, they would help this, they would help around whatever needed to be done. And they came back for the meal, they brought a gift, and they would help serve, clear off the table, At the end, they offered to do the dishes. That's what it was like. Today, and Hatorah, it's much harder for us to have guests because I have a large family. And in fact, my children were all talking about how we're possibly going to fit into the house for the Seder. So if a bunch of my kids are coming with their grandchildren, there's just no room. Yeah. So, but when you do get a call, they say, hi, can I come for a Shabbos meal? There's 5 of us, we can't split up. So, like I say, it's on rare occasions that I can, but I say, sure. All right. They show up for the meal. They bring a box of candy that they were selling in the seminary to bring as a gift, I have to say, entertaining is much easier than it used to be because they all sit and talk among themselves. Nobody is particularly interested in talking to me. Me and my wife clear off, we serve. At the end, they say, thank you very much, and they leave. There are those people who feel taken advantage of. But you notice that when Avram Avinu walked the Malachim out and he came back, Sarah never said, you believe the nerve of these guys? They never offered to help serve. They didn't offer to clear off. It was just the opposite. Our Masorah were waiting, hoping for an opportunity to have guests. Now, having said that, is it possible that people will take advantage of your good nature? Yes. There are people who are constantly asking to borrow money and they have no intention of paying it back. It's possible for people to abuse your good nature. But of course, you have to, for example, it says if you see the person has to unload his donkey, so you should go and help him unload it. And it says, help him. Meaning, if he sits down and folds his arms and says, well, you have a mitzvah to unload my donkey, so go ahead. Yeah? You don't have that obligation. What it says. If the person wants to work together with me, that's one thing. But if the person says, well, you have a mitzvah, you do it. You take care of it. Yeah. I have a friend of mine. He had a bunch of little kids, and they kept, they were sick a lot of times. Now, the way it works here in Israel, if you decide to become a doctor here and you get paid by the kuppah, yeah, for the health fund, so you get one payment of a very small amount for 3 months. It doesn't matter how many times that person comes to you, you already got your payment for the 3 months. So at one point, the doctor, who was a Harvard Medical School graduate, says to him, you realize you've been here 17 times this month? And I think he paid me 23 shekels, for the 3 month period. And the guy said to him, what do you want from me? You decided to make Aliyah. You should have stayed in America and gone into private practice. You would have been rich. But you decided to live the Zionist dream. So I'm taking advantage. So over there, that's what the doctor does. Doctor cures. Doctor helps. When a person's in a position, so as I told earlier when I was at the Project Inspire convention and people kept coming over to talk to me, did I feel I was being taken advantage of? Absolutely not. I was so happy that I had the schus that people wanted to talk to me and that I was able to help them. But could you find yourself in a position where people abuse your good nature? Yes, it is. There is such a thing. But you got to think very hard over, I have an opportunity to do a chesed, and do I want to lose that chesed because it's going to inconvenience me? Or is there somebody who with poor intentions is taking advantage of my good nature? Like I knew this family that didn't have a lot of money, and there was a family that was always complaining they didn't have any money. So even though they didn't have a lot, they kept inviting them over for Shabbos. And they would feed their whole family, week after week after week. And at the end, it turns out they were saving up to move into their villa. That's why they weren't liquid at the time. And I have to say, they felt a little taken advantage of because, you were in a position, you just didn't want to spend your money on it, So the answer is, in general, the concept of, hey, I don't need this. We don't have that. Why is it my problem? We don't have that. But is it possible for people to be able to abuse your good nature? It is possible. Anonymous writes, I've noticed that many Frum people, especially men from a Yeshivish background, have a sloppy, unkempt appearance. Spills, unclean clothes, lack of hygiene. Why is that? What happened to kavod Hatorah? Why don't they care about looking right? So, I have a policy when it comes to answering these kind of questions, and that is, do not defend the indefensible. When people say, how do you explain Jews who throw rocks at people? The answer is, it's wrong and has been condemned by every religious authority. There's nobody who supports it. These people are wrong. When people ask me, how do you explain Frum people who smoke? I tell them it's wrong. I'm not going to do any apologetics. And I've tried over the years. Somebody once said to me in a group, they said, well, there's never been any studies done of people who smoke for 6 days and let their lungs rest for 1 day. Okay, I'll try it. Next time I asked the question, I gave that answer, and a cardiologist stood up and said, I have the numbers for you, Rabbi. They die like everybody else. So if you're asking me, is there a defense for people being slovenly? The answer is no. Do you know why you wear a hat for davening? It's an act of kavod. So if you have a hat that's crushed and dusty and has footprints on it, that you pulled out of the gemach in the back of the room, it's not much of a kavod. Yeah. When I learned the Chofetz Chaim, and okay, we're a little crazy. I've tried to establish that over the years. Yeah. Rav Henoch used to say that a guy coming to learn in yeshiva should be coming like a junior executive working in a firm. And when guys were in kollel, he used to tell them, you have to wear a tie. Sign of kavod. You have to conduct yourself properly. Is it an obligation? It's for sure an obligation. Now, if you want me to be melamed zchus, I'll be melamed zchus, and say that there is a concept of being mevatel the mitzvos in order for you to be an onav. The Gemara that they cite for this is where Rabbi Yeshua is asked by the daughter of the king, "Why are you so ugly?" So he says, "Well, why do you keep your father's wine in earthenware vessels? They're ugly. Why don't you keep them in beautiful vessels of gold and silver?" She says, "You're right. You put them in gold and silver, and they all spoil." So she understood that the outer appearance does not guarantee that the inner contents are going to be better. So he says, "So how come the other chachamim aren't as ugly as you?" He says, "If they were, they'd be bigger talmidei chachamim." So there is such a concept, and Reb Chaim Brisker was known that he would take that approach. Can I honestly tell you that the average schlumpy yeshiva guy has a philosophy behind it? No, he doesn't. But they're in a type of lifestyle where nobody cares. And when you're in a lifestyle where nobody cares, I had a girl learning in seminary in Israel, and she used to say, "Listen, I'll come once a week to you to do laundry, and I'll help around the house." Okay. As the year went on, it was once every 2 weeks. Eventually, it was once a month. I said, "What happened?" She goes, "You live in seminary long enough, your standards drop, So you pull something out of the shelf, you're like, that's not too bad." Because you're with a bunch of people, nobody cares. And you see by the time it hits winter time, you see them wearing this ski hat pulled down over their head. They don't even bother doing their hair, and they're wearing the sweatpants under the skirt, they're shuffling. All they're missing is a baby carriage filled with garbage to push down the street and mumble to themselves. So, when you live in that kind of environment where nobody cares about it, so you tend not to care about it either. But it's just when you're in a society where they're like that. I used to have a girl in seminary. She would get all dressed up, put on her makeup every single day that she came to class. And she stood out, because most people didn't, And she said, because I feel like the way that a Bas Torah conducts herself is important. Yeah. And that's what they taught us in Chofetz Chaim. You're going to represent Torah. You have to go around dressed nicely. And like I say, if you live in a place where nobody cares about it, so after all, you don't care about it. So Rav Hanoch Teller, who is one of my heroes, told me the following story. And this is so Hanoch Teller because he's that person who always goes the extra mile. His son had a Rabbi who was a very good Rabbi, but all the kids made fun of him for exactly these reasons. He was dirty, he smelled, he was unkempt. So Hanoch Teller came and waited till school was over. And he said to him, "I want you to know that you're probably the most effective Rabbi my son ever had. And it kills me that you're less effective than you should be for silly reasons." He pulls out a bag. He says, "This is toothpaste, and this is a toothbrush, and this is mouthwash, and this is soap, and this is shampoo, and this is deodorant. I'm going to tell you what to do with these things because you're too good to let people put you down for silly things like this." Me? I would have made fun of him behind his back. But like I said, Hatorah is one of my heroes, So it's just it's just people don't know. You live in a society where nobody cares, and nobody cares, and that's what ends up happening. And the last one, confused wife. If men don't like it when their wives repeat the same request, why don't they at least make any movement or noise to acknowledge that they heard and understand the first time? I'm sorry, what? Now, I love this question because I think my wife submitted it. Let me explain to you, okay? When you're talking to somebody and they keep going, my wife is the master of this. When my wife is on the phone, she is so animated, and you're listening to everything else and go, what? What happened? Oh my gosh, really? Oh no. And goes on. And everyone's like, what happened? What happened? She's like, nothing, She's so good at reacting. Yeah. I'm terrible at it. And the reason is I'm putting all of my effort into listening to what the person is saying. I'll break my train of thought if I keep going, So when I'm talking to somebody on the phone, you have certain people who are insecure who keep going, hello? Hello, are you there? I was like, yeah, I'm there. Oh, because they don't hear me saying anything. It's because I'm listening. Yeah. And Allah, we have a din, kozman shepole dino b'leah. When you're talking, you don't have a chance to also listen. Yeah. But I have another problem, and I think men are like this. Yeah. Someone sent me a email about the difference between men and women, and one thing made an impression on me. It says 2 men can sit and watch a football game for 3 hours without either one of them saying a word, and neither one thinks that the other guy must be angry at me. That'll never happen with women. Women, if the two of them are saying that no one's saying anything, they become like, all right, I think it must be a reason. No, men are taking it in. They're thinking about it. So sometimes my wife asks me a question, and I don't answer her right away because I'm thinking about what she said. I don't necessarily have an answer right now. I'm thinking about it. I'm considering it. And she's like, are you listening to me? I was like, yeah, I'm just thinking about it. Now, this is a big problem with emails because sometimes I get an email which requires some thought. And what my wife says to me, at least write back and say, I got the email, I will answer you later. I don't do that because that's like going, in the middle of a conversation. So I don't answer the email because I'm thinking about it. Not all emails have really easy, pat answers. And I have to stop and think about it. So it could be very often that that's the reason. Men are not ignoring you. They heard what you said and they're thinking about it. They might be planning it out. They might be deciding how they're going to fit it in. And they don't automatically go, Women are much better at that. Now, to be fair, the Chazal say of the 10 levels of speech, women got 9 of them. And we have only 1. We have to use it carefully. We don't have that many words. Yeah. As a gentleman once said to me not that long ago. Anyway. Okay, well, that's it for this week. If you want to find out more about the show, you can go to my website, Orlofsky.com. You can leave a comment. You can sponsor an episode. You can still sign up for the Tefillah series, which hopefully is going to start after Pesach. You can send an email. You can offer to work on a Rabbi Orlofsky show live that's going to hopefully be taking place around Lag BaOmer time. We have to plan out where and when and what, and hopefully people have more advanced time for it. And that's it. Until next time, I am Dovid Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. The Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.